In Washington, with the end of the fiscal year fast approaching, lawmakers are once again in a standoff over government funding. Democratic leaders in the appropriations committees have released an alternative stopgap funding bill in an effort to avert a government shutdown. Their proposal, known as a continuing resolution, would keep federal agencies operating through October 31st, providing what they call a short bridge for negotiating a full-year spending package. The Democratic bill stands in contrast to a Republican proposal, with key differences centered on health policy and executive oversight. A central provision of the Democratic plan is to roll back recent health policy changes they argue would lead to coverage losses and higher costs for Americans. It would also make the Enhanced Affordable Care Act premium tax credits permanent. Democrats highlight that over 20 million people currently benefit from these credits, and they warn that letting them expire would cause insurance premiums to spike significantly. Furthermore, the proposal would extend a slate of public health and Medicare programs through the end of October, including funding for community health centers, the National Health Service Corps, and the special diabetes programs. This counter-proposal underscores the deep divisions that remain as the deadline to fund the government draws near. Meanwhile, another battle is brewing on Capitol Hill, this one focused on the final months of the previous administration. New details have emerged from the House Oversight Committee's investigation into former President Joe Biden's use of an auto pen for official business. According to a source familiar with his testimony, former White House Chief of Staff Jeff Zients told investigators that Hunter Biden was involved in discussions about presidential pardons toward the end of his father's term. Zients, who met with the committee behind closed doors for over 6 hours, reportedly confirmed that Hunter attended a few meetings on the subject with White House aides. This revelation comes as the committee probes whether executive decisions signed via auto pen, including a record number of clemency orders, were executed with the former president's full awareness and consent. The issue is particularly sensitive given that former President Biden issued a full and unconditional pardon for his son in early December of 2024. A move the White House had previously denied was under consideration. The source also said Zients acknowledged that the former president's speech stumbles and difficulty remembering dates and names had worsened over time. However, a second source defended the testimony, emphasizing that while President Biden valued input from a wide range of advisors, the final decisions were always his and his alone. From a former president's administration to a former president's safety, we turn to a federal courtroom in Florida, where the trial of the man accused of attempting to assassinate Donald Trump is nearing its conclusion. Prosecutors are expected to rest their case today against Ryan Routh, who was charged with the assassination attempt at Trump's West Palm Beach Golf Club in 2024. As they prepared to close, prosecutors called a series of forensic experts to the stand. Jurors heard testimony from Randy Walters, a destructive device examiner for the ATF. He detailed the contents of a box recovered from the home of one of Routh's acquaintances, which contained homemade explosive devices, including rat traps, modified to trigger explosives, pipes, and .50 caliber cartridges. Walters testified that the components had no other purpose other than being used as a weapon. Routh, who was representing himself, cross-examined the agent, highlighting that many of the individual components were not illegal to own. The jury also got its closest look yet at the Chinese-made semi-automatic rifle that prosecutors say Routh carried onto the golf course. Throughout the proceedings, Routh's courtroom behavior has been unusual. He has been heard sighing audibly, apologizing to witnesses, and has been cut off by Judge Aileen Cannon for continuing to speak over objections. With the prosecution's case wrapping up, the defense has been told to have its witnesses ready to be called. Staying with legal matters but shifting focus to state law, a significant new measure has been enacted in Texas that targets access to abortion. Governor Greg Abbott on Tuesday signed into law a bill known as House Bill 7, which aims to halt the sale of abortion medication by mail to residents of his state. The new law does not create a new criminal penalty, but instead uses a novel civil enforcement mechanism. It allows private citizens to bring lawsuits against any entity that mails abortion medication into Texas, where the procedure is already banned. Under the law, a private citizen can file what is known as a qui tam action, suing in the name of the state of Texas. If successful, the litigant can collect damages from the medication provider of at least $100,000, in addition to attorney's fees. Supporters of the bill argue that it is a necessary tool to enforce the state's existing abortion ban and will protect the lives of unborn children. However, critics, including reproductive rights advocates, contend that the law is designed to spread fear and intimidate providers, not just in Texas, but across the country. They argue it effectively outsources law enforcement to private individuals, creating a chilling effect that will further restrict healthcare access for Texans. Finally, we turn to a major development in the nation's healthcare system, where federal authorities have taken an unprecedented step to address patient safety. The Department of Health and Human Services has decertified a Florida-based organ procurement organization, citing concerns of patient harm and unsafe practices. The agency, the Life Alliance Organ Recovery Agency, is a division of the University of Miami Health System and is one of 55 federally authorized nonprofits responsible for allocating organs for transplant across the country. This marks the first time in history that HHS has decertified such an organization in the middle of its operational cycle. In a press conference, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. stated the action is part of a broader move to root out unsafe practices in the organ transplant system that could cost patients' lives. He said, "Every American should feel safe becoming an organ donor and giving the gift of life. Yet decades of ignored patient safety concerns have driven more and more Americans off the donor list." The move signals a significant crackdown on underperforming agencies and is intended to restore public trust in the organ donation process. It serves as a stark warning to the entire transplant network that strict adherence to safety protocols is non-negotiable.